I have a book in me. This is my friend, my brother.
Thank you, Kelly and Oliver.
I'm a multi-award winning best-selling author.
If you want to start a new business, I suggest you write the book on it.
God woke me up at 2:30 in the morning and I wrote a book.
Some of you got books already. Some of you got novels already.
The lead generator is the book.
You write a book, you leave a legacy to your children.
And I hope you guys listen to these guys so they know what they're talking about.
What's up, everybody? I'm the publisher, Mr. Kelly Cole.
And I'm the writing coach, Dr. Oliver T. Reid, the relationship architect.
Welcome to Books-N-Brothas podcast. And today we got a special guest, my main man all the way. Where you at? You in the 305? Where you at?
Yeah, Fort Lauderdale.
My main man, Nate. So introduce yourself, bro. Tell them who you are, your name, and all that good stuff. Where you at?
All right. I am Nathaniel Crawford. I am a luxury realtor and a startup entrepreneur here in sunny South Florida. And I am also the author of the book, The Audacity of Hustle.
Dope, man. Love that title, man.
Nice.
Yeah. I appreciate you having me, man.
What'd you say, bro?
I was saying, say that one more time, man. The audacity of what?
The Audacity of Hustle.
Hey, I love it. I heard it the first time, but I just had to get that. Go.
Yes, sir.
If there's one thing I do, I hustle.
Every day.
It don't stop, man. But thank you, man. Man, thank you for coming on Books-N-Brothas podcast. You're only our third guest we've ever had on here. It's usually just me and my bro rocking out. And I put that post out, and you was one of the people that commented on. I was like, yo, we need to get Nate on there because Nate, you know, got that big money. He the next up. Look for the picture like they put out when Tyler Perry became a billionaire. Nate will be up there next. That's the guy. Luxury Realtor. All right, first, before we get into the real estate part, tell us a little bit about the book. Like, what made you want to write this book, and what is the book about?
Well, the book is sort of I'd say an overview of sort of how I got to where I'm at today. So we didn't go into super duper detail, but I get a lot of questions sort of in the broad sense of, you know, we talk about purpose and why you do what you do and the price of pursuing your purpose and not only the price that you pay, but the price that those around you pay and understanding that. And when I was having conversations with a lot of times with people who would see where I'm at today and sort of assume that it's always been like that. And you got to sort of let them know, hey man, no, I'm from over there too. So I'm living proof that you can get here. It didn't always, you know, happen like this. It ain't always been a, you know, crystal stair. So writing the book was a good way to give someone in relatively, you know, short terms to say, hey, this is sort of the roadmap that I use to get here. So you can take these same principles and get here too.
Yo, so you talk about purpose as being like one of the foundations you talk about in the book. Did you always want to be a luxury realtor? Did you always want to be in real estate, or how did that happen? How did you discover that?
Well, no, I didn't always want to be in real estate. I frankly didn't want to be around luxury. I just like having money. You know, I like having, you know, the things that come with that. And at a very early age, I became very clear that part of my purpose was to have that as a vehicle to help other people get that. So when I was in high school, I was doing music. So back then, you know, once I sort of felt the purpose, I thought, well, maybe the purpose in the music or the connection there. So I'm pursuing a rap career and doing all that stuff, thinking that's the purpose. And sort of as my life sort of progressed, it became, you know, more and more clear in doing different things that, well, that part of my life had purpose sort of in larger context, but the music wasn't necessarily the place where the success was going to come. And then I found marketing as a result of being in the music. So I found that my gift, so to speak, was in the space of marketing, because one of the guys I was working on, one of my mentors in the music business, suggested, hey man, you should get into marketing. And I hadn't thought of it beyond, say, street teaming and stuff like that, and found the marketing piece while I was in college. And that sort of opened my brain up to all the opportunities to get people to understand, well, how do I make these people do this? How do I make those people buy that? And that was sort of the path that I was on when mentors and friends started sort of nudging me, saying, hey, man, you should get into real estate. I was like, well, why? I didn't even understand how real estate agents got paid. I was happy. I had an ad agency job, had my first $1 million budget, all that stuff, because I was focused on, well, how do I get people to take action on anything, selling plastic cups or whatever. And a good friend of mine in Atlanta, one of my mentors, called me up at the time. I think he still is a real estate agent. Called me up and told me he made $17,000. I said, Nate, I made $17,000 yesterday. Really? What'd you do? He said, I sold a house. I said, well, how many houses did you sell? I said, I sold one. You sold one house and made 17 grand? I said, yeah. So I signed up to get my real estate license the next day. And it was, for me, man, I saw very clearly there. It took some really uncomfortable conversations with my wife because of where we were sort of financially, just sort of in our lives at the time. But I saw very clearly an opportunity for me to be able to use my marketing skills to sell a product that for one sale, I have deals now where in one transaction, I make more than most people make a year.
Yeah.
So that same skill set that we can use to sell red cups, or that we can use to sell anything, for me was like, man, I could do this with real estate and make a whole lot of money, which then allowed me to make the financial impact on the community, on the things that I wanted to address. My life as an entrepreneur and just sort of looking at stuff in the community I've spent a lot of time, as I'm sure, both you brothers have, trying to convince people to do things. And when you got to convince people to do things, you got to raise money. You got to get them to take action.
Yeah.
But it's way easier to get those people to take action when you present it to them as something that you're going to do without them if they don't do it, versus trying to get everybody to participate. If somebody calls you and says, hey, Kelly, man, you want to meet me for lunch tomorrow? I'm thinking about going. You say, all right, well, you might have a dozen other things to do. You say, well, maybe, yeah, maybe not. But if they call you and say, hey, man, I'm going to be at Gladys's Chicken and Wings, you're welcome to come through, then that changes sort of the frame of that conversation. So for me, being able to make meaningful impacts on things that I want to address, having that financial ability, whether it's an entrepreneurial idea or something in the community or getting people to vote. I just want to say that, but
definitely,
getting people motivated to do things. When you have that financial ability, especially as an entrepreneur, it helps to address things. So I saw that very early, and then as I sort of got into real estate and looked backwards, a lot of the process that I had gone through, a lot of the relationships I had built when I was sort of drifting in my purpose became extremely valuable once I found that. And that was how I became, was able to be at the luxury brokerage I came to here in South Florida. That was how I met the people I met. That was how I started doing the $30 million deals and all that other stuff, because of the people I met back when I wasn't quite sure what my purpose was, but I was just sort of going where I thought it was.
Right.
That's, I heard a preacher say one time, you guys say, well, God, I'm not sure this is you, but I'm going to go and we'll figure it out. And that's sort of how I do a lot of it. And my wife can vouch for that.
So, what you got, bro?
Yeah, I was saying, man, great. I was enjoying this story, this ride, from a standpoint of this, definitely with you. My biggest thing, one of my questions, I got so many questions that popped in my head, but one of the questions I wanted to kind of hit on with you, Nate, was what has your book, your author, what has your book done for you? You're already accomplished, you're already a student, you making millions of dollars. What would be one of the things you say, hey, your book added a component to? If that can be asked. Well,
it's, more than anything else, the first thing I would say is it's a conversation starter. It's, it has helped, for me, I know I know agents, and I talk to a lot of agents, and I'm probably going to eventually do this myself. I know agents who have books, and the sole purpose of that book is to get them business, because that book paints them as an expert in, in foreclosures and divorce sales and relocating, stuff like that. And that's extremely powerful. But for me, a lot of times, a lot of the conversations that I have around real estate are especially lately, are more about diversity and educating people about how we manage gentrification and stuff like that. And because of the success I've been blessed with now, and the way I have to present that as part of my business. So when they see my car, or they see the properties I hang out at, when I'm talking to people who are trying to get in, like I sort of alluded to earlier, they don't always understand that I'm telling them from a place of experience. I'm not just sort of sitting over here saying, from my ivory tower, this is how you should do it. So the book allows me to give them something that says, no, when I moved to Florida to sell real estate before my grandfather passed, I was staying at his house, and my wife was pregnant, sleeping on the floor at my mom's house.
Wow.
So I went from that. I had a little pickup truck with no heat or AC. Drove all the way down here and was parking it. I got videos of me valeting my little pickup truck. It was a low ride with tint on the window. Used to get pulled over all the time. And I'm showing, $1 million condos with it. I got video of me valeting at the Ritz-Carlton. Wow. And I kept the video just because I knew people wouldn't believe that it happened.
Right.
So that type of stuff is what I put in the book, so people can see, hey, I'm not, I'm not this. I'm that. I got here. And that context, when you're talking, a lot of times people see real estate, especially in communities of color, they don't understand that. So it's very easy to sort of other people who are successful and say, oh, well, he didn't come from where I came from. He can't, they'll come in our communities and sell houses and all that other stuff. So the book has been a very, very good way for me to build bridges and start conversations with young people and old people, or anyone who wants to get into real estate at any level. And when I tell them that I understand, and I'm not telling you what somebody told me, I'm telling you what I did. I can give you step by step. Do this, do this, do this. Say your prayers, do your best, as my mom would say, and keep grinding. And I'm proof that is that. And the book is very general documentation of that.
Awesome. Dope, man. So one of the things you talk about in your book is the importance of relationships. And a lot of young people, man, they don't understand how important relationships are. Like, me and you were connected via relationships. Like, the people, like I said, I'm literally 1 to 2 degrees to connection to anybody I want to meet. And it's just relationships. A simple hello can lead to a million things. And I remember I was doing events in Atlanta, and did we connect through Tommy or Damon? Which one?
Tommy.
Tommy and Damon walked into an event that I was doing in Atlanta with this guy. We're not going to talk about him. He booked me for 7 weeks and turned out to be a crook. But anyway, Damon and Tommy walked into there. I met them there. And then next thing I know, we're at this other event together. And they invite me to this larger mastermind, which years down the line introduced me to Nate. So talk a little bit about the importance of relationships, especially no matter what you do. How important are relationships?
Yeah, well, I think that relationships are as I say in the book, they're the keys that open doors. That's relationship in the simplest sense is your relationship with Christ and your salvation, your relationship with your sort of your purpose, and understanding that everyone, as the old folks say, everybody you meet can teach you something, because they know something you don't know. And understanding that, just sort of making notes on that. I very early in my life, even when I was doing stuff I had no business doing, learned that relationships with people, just with all people, were important. One of the things that I've sort of gravitated towards, and I think we as people of color, especially those of us who had to sort of take the rough side of the mountain to a degree, we are very keen on making relationships with the people that other people ignore. So with the valets and with the secretaries and with the housekeepers. You know, every music exec that I've ever had a conversation with in Atlanta, I got it because I was cool with the receptionist.
Yeah.
Because I was cool with the valet. You know, most of those conversations didn't come because I was some big time, you know, street team guy or marketing guru and nothing like that. And a lot of the deals that I've done here in real estate have come because of just conversation, just acknowledging people. And when you understand that, so the sort of the foundation of building the relationship and having a genuine desire to add value to other people. So once me and Kelly are cool and I can figure out, well, this is what Kelly's working on, how can I help Kelly? This is what I'm working on. So when I understand that, then that automatically, I think the universe just sort of works that way. It'll come back to me, but it also shows you that I'm interested in helping you, which then in most cases you'll say, well, hey, how can I help Nate? And the vast majority of us, with probably very few exceptions, are contrary to what people believe, whatever industry we work in, we're in the business of relationships. The currency we deal in is relationships. I make the largest deals I've done in my career have not been because I'm a really good real estate agent. They've been because I'm really good at building relationships. And that is the sort of the meat and potatoes under it all. You can be really good, that's great, but I know people who are horrible real estate agents and they make 7 figures a year just because they're really good at building relationships. So that's sort of the core.
So what you got, bro?
Yeah, I was saying, man, this is really good because you know, I'm a relationship guy. I'm about, you know, building those relationships. Let me ask you, what keeps you motivated? Again, because you reach pinnacles of success, right? You've written this book. What keeps you motivated? I heard a lot earlier what kept you grounded, but what keeps you pressing to the next level?
So, yeah, that's a big one. Given the current climate, I see what happens in our communities. Less than 5% of all realtors are people of color. Probably less than 1% are full-time realtors, and less than that are in the luxury space. And until that changes, you know, that's sort of where I get my motivation from. I've made life-changing money selling real estate. I have sold $30,000 foreclosures. I've done $30 million deals, you know, for land for the Waldorf Astoria residences in downtown Miami. You know, I've personally invested in some very large apartment buildings here in South Florida, and I can do it, and you can do it, and anybody else can do it. It costs less than $1,000 to get your real estate license. It's not rocket science. It is fundamentals. And what motivates me now is that generational wealth gap is something that we can address very clearly and very systematically, just as systematically as they try to oppress us and kill us. We can generate that wealth just as systematically. It's not rocket science. It's very fundamental. So part of what I am very passionate about right now is making sure that anybody who talks to me, anybody who talks to anybody close to me that has any inclination about getting into real estate, I can tell you from experience, you can make a lot of money in the country, in the city, and everywhere in between if this is what you're going to do. It doesn't take rocket science, it takes focus. You know, that is something in many cases we can train, but you know, you can't teach ambition. I can teach you how to act like you want it, but I can't make you want it. And that difference is, as I'm sure both of you guys know, just in your respective fields, we know very, very talented people who are wasting their talent. We know very, very motivated people who are making a lot of money. And that difference, you know, for me, real estate of all the things that I've sold is the thing that I found that can get you from zero to at least to financial stability in the shortest period of time with the least amount of effort, so long as you have the proper foundation. And that is what I want to be able to teach people about real estate: owning their home, owning multiple, you know, multifamily properties, investing in that, being builders, being developers. Those opportunities are here. and they're here at all price points. I've met people who make good money selling $30,000 houses, $50,000 houses in South Georgia. I've met people who make good money selling multi-million-dollar properties. It's at every level. So it's not a question of price. It's a question of motivation and education. And what, as you can tell, like I'm giving you this wordy answer, is I really, really want people that look like everybody on this call to understand that you can do very well and make a meaningful impact on your community in real estate. And I'm living proof of that.
So if somebody wanted to get into real estate, do they have to get a license, or are there other ways that they can get in? Like if there was a 21-year-old like my son, I'm praying he listens to this podcast, and he needs another income stream, what would you say would be the quickest way for him to get into real estate or making some type of money with real estate?
The easiest way is to, let me rephrase that. The most efficient way is to get your real estate license.
Okay.
And the reason for that is there are a lot of people that sort of work around that, and they go buy and flip properties and all of that stuff. But every real estate investor that I've met that was a good investor had a good real estate agent.
Gotcha.
All of them. So there are ways around. There are people that flip properties, and these wholesale guys will tell you they're making all types of money and all this stuff. But the most efficient way to sell a property, unless you have an email list of 1,000 people who want to buy properties, is to take that property and put it in the MLS, to price it appropriately and put a meaningful marketing campaign behind it. And a real estate agent can help you do that. So there are 3 books that I recommend to everybody who's getting into real estate. And outside of that, it's just a matter of getting good mentors, good coaches. If you don't want to get your real estate license, then get with a good real estate agent, and that just explain to them your goals. One of the things that I do with a lot of my clients is to just do that. Okay, well, what do you want to do?
Right.
You know, I've had clients who bought foreclosures that were $25,000, $30,000 because they were just starting out, and they had a couple $1,000s in their 401k and realized that they weren't going to be able to retire off that. So it could serve them better somewhere else. You know, and some of those same people have gone on to get their real estate licenses because that's sort of the most efficient way. There's a book called The Millionaire Real Estate Agent by a guy named Gary Keller, the founder of Keller Williams.
Okay.
That's probably a good place to start, whether you're going to be a real estate agent or not. And then there's a book called The Color of Law by a guy named Richard Rothstein. And it will explain to you in painful detail why our country looks the way it looks, how the government created every ghetto that exists, how they created every luxury community there is, and how that is perpetuated to this day. So if you as an investor want to get into it, and you have the capital, because obviously telling someone to get their real estate license takes time. That'll take you about 3 to 4 weeks. A month, a little over a month if you're super motivated and got lots of free time. But reading The Color of Law will, outside of just living in our communities, will explain the ways that these changes in our community happen with gentrification and stuff like that, and give you a very clear set of eyes to be able to see those opportunities. Because in real estate, one of the other opportunities there, if you don't have the money, but you can align yourself with someone who does have the money, that's how you become the partner, and you'll just take on the sweat equity. So you put in the work because you got an investor partner who's got the money to flip the houses or to renovate the houses and stuff like that. So the shortest distance would be to get your real estate license. The second shortest distance, if you have some capital, would be to read up on some good investment strategies and talk to a good real estate agent. And just say, if you go to that good agent and say, these are my goals. Same way you would go to a financial advisor and say, these are my goals. A good agent can tell you how to achieve those goals in any market.
Gotcha. You mentioned 3 books. You gave us 2. What's the other one?
Yeah. Oh, The Color of Law, The Millionaire Real Estate Agent, and Don Peebles, The People's Principles.
The People's Principles. All right, guys, you check out those books. All right, bro, what you got? Go ahead.
Man, I know one thing. I want to get those books. You know what I mean? I'm like motivated because, I'm saying this here, but we wasn't recording, I'd probably be running around the room because I think it's the good things you talk about, the investment. walk me through your process of going back to the book. I know why, but walk me through the process when you sat down and you decided to write a book. What was your framework around the process of your thought about? Was there anything you had to overcome? You know, we talk a lot on the show about overcoming the fear of writing. Was there anything that you may have said, hey, I don't know if I really want to deal with that? Or anything did you have any kind of apprehensions or anything? Walk me through your feelings of writing the book.
Well, not from the book perspective, because I wanted to sort of give an overview of how I sort of got here. I thought through it and, you know, sort of put an outline together, and the amazing people at the Publishing Advantage Group put me up. You know, I had an awesome publisher.
There you go. Talk about it.
So I had a sort of an outline of what I wanted to talk to from a very high level. And because there was a specific message, there are a couple places I think I could have gone into a little more detail in to give people a little more, you know, emphasis on how hard it was. But from a broad perspective, it was sort of just thinking through those steps. So I didn't really get into the nuts and bolts of I know what you're alluding to when you talk about that. I don't want to put this person's business out there, or I don't know if I want to really get into some of that. And I'm seriously considering writing another one, because one of the feedbacks I got from one of the pieces of feedback, consistent pieces of feedback I got from good friends of mine who have watched me through that story was that I should have went into a little bit more detail about the price that there is to be paid. You know, one of the phrases I use a lot is you can have your dream, you can live your dream, but your dream might kill you. And that is something that I don't think we as entrepreneurs get to explain to people without being demonized for it. You know, I think me and my wife saw what when she found out Chadwick Boseman had passed, and she saw, you know, the timeline.
Yeah.
She said she thought about me, because I complain about people talking about self-care all the time. I don't think there's time for that. I have a purpose, and there's something that needs to be done. And when I achieve that, when I get to where I'm trying to get, then I'll take some time off. But today, there's work to be done, and I didn't go into as much detail as I could have in that particular book, you know, which means I got to talk to my publisher about a sequel.
Let's go.
But that, you know, from a writing process was something that I probably could have went a little bit further, but I purposely, when I was walking through the process, wanted to make sure I touched on at least every portion of it from start to finish. You know, it's very, you want to give people context. So when you see me, you know, go out and buy a car that my daughter picked out, you know, now you understand that I used to drive a little pickup that somebody gave me.
Right.
You know, so, but if I don't tell you about where I came from, then you just think the car was just a random car. You don't understand the story behind that. So my thought process on a high level was making sure that if someone reads the book, they have better context to the way I talk about all this stuff. And a lot of times you don't always get that when someone's telling you their story. They just sort of start in the middle, you know, when everything started to get better, instead of really telling you, hey, well, no, I just sort of drifted for a long time. I spent almost 10 years in college, just drifted trying to figure out what was going on. So getting to the point where I really understood that, and having a team, you know, a publisher, you know, someone who's helping me with my writing, to be able to sort of pull that out and say, hey, well, let's talk about that a little bit more. Or let's discuss this a little bit more, I think was very, very helpful.
Awesome. Thank you.
Dope, man. So yeah, let's talk about that. You said you can have your dream, but your dream may kill you. Like, elaborate on that a little bit. Like you said, you wrestle with people who talk about self-care and all of that stuff. Like, is your destination a number, or is it a place? Like, when are you going to know that you're there? What is yours?
Well, that's a good question. You know, I believe it's not a number. I can tell you that. I like to say my two goals are to make sure that I do everything in my power to make sure my family goes to heaven, my wife and my kids, and to give them the best life possible here on earth.
Okay.
And that is a foundation of sort of generational wealth, and knowing that they'll be okay when I'm gone, so to speak. And I think that's, I don't know that there's a number as much as there's a, and I've heard you allude to some of this stuff when you talk about your babies. So I know it's more of a feeling. You're like, man, I did good with that. I did that. He's got it now. So, and it's not one thing that says, okay, this happened and now everything's great. It's sort of a process of sort of getting there. Mm-hmm. The example that I use when I talk about that level of sacrifice a lot of times is when you bring a baby home from the hospital. Mm-hmm. So I have 3 kids. When my kids have come home from the hospital, nobody sleeps. Yeah. Everybody knows this. When the babies are learning their days and nights, you don't sleep. At best, you might get an hour and a half for at least the next 3 months. But you still go to work. You still go shopping. You still do everything that needs to be done. You build your entire life around what that baby needs. Mm-hmm. No parent has ever come home and said, man, that baby's just going to have to cry because I need me some me time. I need some me time. I'm going to go get me a beer and I'm going to go take a nap. And the baby's going to have to take care of herself. I need to take care of me. They don't do that. Right. You take care of the baby, and that means that you get tired, you oversleep. The only time that baby does not get taken care of is when you fall asleep, because your body physically will not let you do anymore. You sit down on the couch, holding the baby with the bottle in her mouth. She doesn't finish drinking the bottle, and you sleep, and she full. And you will sleep until she wakes up, or until her mama come in the room and say, "What you doing? Did you burp?" You keep going. You do what is required. You don't do what you can. You don't do what you have to. You do whatever needs to be done. The other side of that, though, is there are a percentage of people who die every year because they get in car accidents, because they fall asleep, because they've been taking care of a baby. There are women who have postpartum depression and kill themselves. This is a very sad fact, but it is a fact nonetheless. Yeah. So that's a small percentage of people, but it happens, which means that not everybody can take care of the baby that they were given. Your purpose is in you. And when you have to go after that purpose, you got to go get it. And those of us who get that are, to me, the Chadwick Bosemans of the world. Those are people who say, well, no, all that other stuff is cool, but I've been put here to do something. Mm-hmm. And whatever the price that needs to be paid for me to accomplish what God sent me here to do, then I'm going to pay that price. And you can talk to me about vacations and self-care and all that other stuff, and that's great, because that's a path for someone else. If you get up every day and go punch a clock for someone else, you absolutely need to go on vacation. Because I don't believe anybody should go stand in anybody else's business and give them their whole life for nothing. However, if you're doing it for you, if you are doing it for your kids, there are boxes that need to be checked. If you want your kids to have stamps in their passport, if you want your kids to have pictures of you on their wall for their great grandkids, that's Papa Kelly. Wow, Papa Kelly bought this house. He built this, he built that. That's the generational wealth we're talking about. There's sacrifice that has to be made for that. And I don't think that everyone understands that sacrifice, because everybody ain't meant to take that path. So those people will tell you, man, you got to get some rest. Why? Because they'll get some rest. And that's fine for them to get some rest. As for me, I got to go get it. And then once I get it, then I'll get some rest.
So you don't rest. What's your routine? Do you have do you take Sundays off at least? Come on, tell the people. Sleep. You sound like the guy, what's his name, David Shin. Sleep is for suckers. Call me a lollipop here.
I do have several shirts that say, my daughter has one of those shirts on today. Mm-hmm. Well, here's what sort of the balance that I've found thus far. Okay. Is I get up around 4:30, 5 in the morning on most of the days. I'm disciplined enough to get up. I get my ride in. You'll see that on Instagram a lot of times. I'll be posting when I'm out riding my bike. And I get back and
You went muted, bro. You muted for some reason. It muted you, bro.
all right.
I
You hear me now?
Yep.
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
There we go. Okay. Because my mind tends to go so fast. What I found the happy medium for me is I after my work, so whenever I finish, let's say call it 9:30, 10 o'clock, I go get another workout in. Because what that allows me to do is if I've given it all I got for this day, then I can go lay down for 3-4 hours and then get up and do it all again. If I don't do that, then what'll happen is I'll lay down and I'll take a nap with my mind, because there's stuff. There's a lot. Tommy, our good friend Tommy Trafford will tell you that it used to be hard for me to just sit down and be still, because there's so much that needs to be done. I feel like the more I learn, the more people need to be told that, man, you can do this. When I got my first check, I sent Tommy a picture of it while I was sitting at the bank. Because that was, to me, was proof. That was that first $347,000 check was proof to me. It was the equivalent of the 5 Heartbeats hearing that song on the radio. Yeah, it's all this sacrifice. It works. I'm not doing this in vain. So I have a regiment that I believe sort of works for me. My goal is to be able to tone that down and ultimately get to where I work because I want to and not because I have to. Right. So there's a couple more things. We got to pay off a house, and I probably need to buy my wife another car, stuff like that. But the couple more income properties and things like that. But I believe that and that's just me. So everybody else, I know people who sleep much less than I do. I know guys who sleep a lot more than I do and probably are way more productive. But finding your balance, this is part of that. Finding your purpose is finding what works for you, and then doing that, and then adjusting as needed. It's sort of a pendulum, because like now with the kids being home, I'm helping with homework. We got to have a little more, father-daughter time, father-son time, because people are getting frustrated. Stuff is going on. My mom, lives with me, so just sort of balance. Some days it's 50-50 work and home. Other days it's 90-10, work and home. Other days it's 90-10 home. So just figuring out what that does and making sure that I can adjust accordingly. Gotcha. Yeah, I definitely feel that. My bro will tell you, I'm like you in a lot of ways. Like, we can be in today, like me and him travel a lot doing those writers' workshop and stuff. We can be in today, and I'm already planning the next day. And he'd be like, bro, listen, this is today at 5 o'clock. Like, why are you thinking about? Because I'm always thinking. He'll tell you, like, my mind is always going. And like you said, I've learned to slow down and kind of, like you said, learn to pace myself. But my mind and my brain never stops. And like you said, if you come from where we come from, if you come from nothing, you can't. It's just something in you. You have to get it. Like you talked about. Like, I understand that. You have to get it. There's no other way for me. Like my son is cool. Like he ain't gotta get it. You know what I'm saying? Like he don't even understand the mentality that we had when we were coming up of we had to take care of everything we got because we didn't know we was gonna get something else. Yep. He gets boxes of clothes from like different Christian designers and all this stuff. He wears that stuff to take out the trash. You know what I'm saying? He'll get a crispy pair of Air Force Ones, take out the trash, clean his car, or do, you know what I'm saying? Like, and then be mad or like, Dad, where you get that from? Be like, bro, I had these 2 years. Like, you had those a month. And you look at, I'd be like, man, you just don't get it. I guess it's my fault because I worked so hard so you didn't have to go through some of the things I went through, which sometimes I beat myself up about it. Like I should have made him, do some other stuff. But my kids are spoiled rotten. But I think that's the gift, though. I think that's one of the the things that I've had that very conversation with a lot of parents, because we have kids. The phrase I use all the time is we have kids that don't know danger. We have been in clubs. You can walk into a room, you can see a dude walk into a restaurant and be like, "Oh, hey, can I get my check? It's time to go." Because you know what danger looks like. I have been out with my children and they had no clue. But the reason they had no clue is because they've never been in dangerous situations, because we went out of our way to raise them in an environment where those dangerous situations didn't exist. So it's frustrating as someone who knows, but it's also, I try to look at it through the lens of it being a gift that they didn't have those problems. My babies ain't never been shot at, and that's a good thing. Not they got to know what's going on. So I think it's one of the other things that I do try to explain to them is that part of what you have to think through a lot is the possibilities. And what I mean by that is as a leader, as a father, as a husband or whatever, when you go somewhere, if things go sideways, your wife, your kids, anybody that's with you is gonna look at you. Right. And as I like to say, they're gonna act like y'all from France, because they're gonna say, "What we gonna do?" And ask you what you gonna do. When they got a problem, you got a problem. What are we going to do? So that means any scenario, whether it's your business, your personal life, if you're the leader, when things go wrong, you have to figure out what we are going to do. So part of the reason my brain goes so much is I'm here in South Florida. It's the middle of hurricane season. I got several $1 million worth of deals that are supposed to close, but we can't close a house if there's a hurricane warning. So what are we going to do if something happens? Right. Why? Because that means I got to address clients. I got to take care of my family. I got to make sure the car is gassed up. Do we have clothes? Where are we going? Can we get an Airbnb? All of those things outside of just my investments and my shipping container houses. All of these things are things that you gotta be able to address. And if you haven't sort of thought through a strategy on that, then you get caught in a scenario where you're grasping for straws. And a lot of people aren't mentally equipped to do that because they didn't grow up in an environment where they had to make sure I do my homework, make sure I take care of this studio time, and make sure I go to work, and make sure I don't get in no fight, and check on my siblings. And when you don't have those things, you don't have the mental dexterity to do all that. And I think we as entrepreneurs come from a place where you always have to be prepared. Always, bro. Man, we can do this all night. Hey, bro, what you got?
No, I'm just sitting here, man, loving this because I love it because, I love to be in a room with guys like you because, and I say virtually, one day we can do this post-COVID.
Yes.
Get to go see you up close and personal, Nate, down there doing your thing, big things, right? But the biggest thing that I love is that people don't get it. Me and my brother Kelly talk all the time about, I get that all the time, like you working too hard, or you need to do this. Why are you doing this? Working a 9 to 5 and then having to do this. But it's one of those things that I think, I always say this and it kind of clicked what you said, Nate, about capacity. If you travel on the highway, you have an 18-wheeler, you can be on one highway and you have a dirt bike, you have, a Miata, you have a Fiat, whatever. All of these vehicles get you down the road, but they don't all have the same towing capacity. And I think that's when, I love hearing and gleaning from you guys tonight, because when you see like minds of towing capacity, like me, Kelly can say he's early, like I said, definitely that's him. We out, he's in the next day, where I'm like 3 a.m. and I'm going. I might be 3 a.m. on the graveyard ship, and I'm like, yo, let's go. I got 7 books I want to pump out. I got, but what I did learn with cross-pollination, I wanted to speak to that, which, the last question I want to ask is that I heard you kind of rattle off several different things, but what came to my mind is that when you have these things, how do you compartmentalize to cross-breed or get around other people? Like I'll say, for example, certain things that I've been around Kelly has rubbed off on me in a good and positive light. So being in it, how important is your circle is a part of that question. And what do you do to cross-pollinate?
Well, what I try to do a lot of is there's another book called The Spook Who Sat by the Door. There's the movie is on YouTube.
What is it called? Say it one more time.
The Spook Who Sat by the Door.
Got it. Okay.
Which is a very, very good movie. It's a little controversial. I shouldn't say a little, it's a lot controversial. But what I sort of glean from that is that part of the blessing of me being able to do what I've done throughout my life, you know, when I was in entertainment, when I was, you know, in college, and now when I'm in real estate, is to sort of live in two different worlds. And what I try to do is to have circles in those two worlds that I can be the bridge to. You know, I've been in rooms with developers who were looking at actively gentrifying neighborhoods, not understanding that gentrification was necessarily a bad thing, and able to take that knowledge and then talk to investors in communities or to people in communities or build marketing strategies myself around that fact. Because the underlying premise in many communities is that somebody somewhere is saying actively, let's get all those Black people out of that community. And my experience has not been that that's the case. It's been that they want to make some money.
Right.
And if you if you can explain to those investors or all those parties involved that diversity is valuable, there's money in keeping these people in their community. There's money in keeping the cultural character of a community. There's huge opportunity there. And then they change. Why? Because most of these developers don't care about diversity one way or the other. They just want to make some money. And being in circles or being blessed to be in rooms where those conversations were happening, and being aware enough of those conversations to understand not only what they said, but how they said it, and being able to take that game and give it back to other people who aren't able to be in those rooms. Right. And say, well, hey, when you're talking to the investors, make sure you go over that internal rates of return and tell them the cap rates. Don't just, you know, tell them about this great opportunity. You know, that is a really, really valuable thing, because the reverse of that then holds true. When I'm talking to the people in the community or talking to, you know, people from a lot of these communities, I can then take things that I know from personal experience in these places when I'm in those rooms with those developers and say, well, hey, I don't know if that'll work. I don't know if you want to replace, you probably shouldn't put a hair salon there. You need to put a barbershop there. You know, just little stuff. It seems random. It can seem mundane. Well, you might want to make sure that you go to the commission meeting instead of sending your assistant. Why? Because those people want to see you. And if you don't, you're going to have a problem there. So having those things, being in circles or being in close proximity to those circles, to be able to understand what's going on there is probably the first level of that. But the second level of that, I think, is more important, in that you have to have the ability to translate what these people are saying to this group and what this group is saying to that group. And for me, it's, you know, it's real estate in the community and developers in the community, but that, I think that's in any industry, is as people who bridge the gap, so to speak, is we come from one smaller community of color, and we learn how to touch the larger community, the world, and being able to bridge that gap, because a lot of just the language is different. The way that developers talk about condos is different from the way that people in the community talk about condos, the way they talk about houses, the way they describe them. So being able to understand that from both places, and then articulate that in a way that allows you to see the opportunities there, because that's where the money is. The value that we can provide on both sides of that spectrum is helping to sort of bridge gaps and filling those information vacuums. So it's to give the short version is that the circles are important, but the overlap in the circle is where the magic is.
I love it. Love it. Last question, man. I ain't gonna let this guy go tonight, Kelly. We're gonna hold him hostage. One of the things I want to say is how I think it'll be relevant for this is how has business been impacted or at all by the COVID-19 virus?
Well, the short version is I am having an amazing year. The real estate market is on fire, and I think there's sort of the long term. We'll probably see a much worse effect, specifically on communities of color, as this stimulus and the rest of this stuff sort of we get the fallout from a lot of essential workers in these places that have been shut down for long periods of time. But what I've seen in the short term is that interest rates are super low. That hasn't been historically, I don't think that's been a big boon for single family home buyers or first time home buyers, but it's a really big deal for investors. So they're putting money into the market. From the single family home perspective, the virus made anybody who had second thoughts about being in somebody else's house stop looking at houses. So if you were not a motivated seller, if you didn't have to sell your house, even right now, if you don't have to sell it, you're not selling it because you don't want people in and out of your house. If you don't have to buy a house right now, you don't want to be in and out of anybody's house. But if you're in a position where you're relocating for your job, people who just got divorced, estate sales, for any number of reasons, those people are selling their houses. Those people are having to buy homes, and they are buying, in droves. We're seeing a lot of, they call them tax refugees here in South Florida. We're seeing people come from places like New York and California, really high tax states, and they're coming here to Florida for the low taxes. So we're seeing a lot of that, and they're driving the prices up. So I've been incredibly busy, and in large part for that reason, because we're seeing a lot more activity. I don't think it's that there are a lot more people in the market, but I think the quality of buyers and sellers has increased tremendously because they're much more motivated on either side of the table. So you're seeing more transactions while there might not be more people.
Man, that's crazy. Man, Nate, like I said, man, we can do this all night. But man, appreciate you coming on the show, man. Real quick, tell the people how they can follow you, how they connect with you, get your book and things like that if they want to work with you as far as being, you selling them a house or whatever. So give the people your info. Okay.
All right. Let's say on Facebook, I'm Nathaniel Crawford. On Instagram, I am They Call Me Mr. Crawford. That's They Call Me Mr. Crawford. My cell number is 404-452-4184. I am licensed in Georgia and Florida. Primarily South Florida is where I spend most of my time. On Twitter, I am Mr. Crawford, Mr. Crawford. So reach out if you got questions. I'm happy to help. I believe that you should own some real estate.
Dope. Good stuff. Like I said, man, thank you so much, bro. You got any final remarks?
Man, don't ask me that. But no, I'm good, man. I'm good. Great to have you, Nate, man. I appreciate you.
Thank you. I was happy to be here.
Hey, if y'all don't think this episode was fire, you crazy. Make sure you guys who's listening, share this episode. Make sure you're following us on Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, everywhere you listen to your podcast. Subscribe to us, share this, and man, we'll be here next week. Thanks again, Nate. And at that note, we're going to leave you with our famous quote. You don't have to get it right.
Just got to get it going.
Thank y'all, man. Hey, Nate, appreciate you, bro. We'll holler at you later.
Yes, sir.
All right, bro. See you next week.
I have a book in me. This is my friend, my brother.
Thank you, Kelly and Oliver.
I'm a multi-award winning best-selling author.
If you want to start a new business, I suggest you write the book on it.
God woke me up at 2:30 in the morning and I wrote a book.
Some of you got books already. Some of you got novels already.
The lead generator is the book.
You write a book, you leave a legacy to your children.
And I hope you guys listen to these guys so they know what they're talking about.